Hey guys, before I get started on this episode, the Golden State with Mates Patreon has a new lower price, $2.99 and $4.99 per month memberships where you can access up to 5 bonus podcast episodes every week, a daily Warriors newsletter, and get yourself in the draw to win monthly giveaways. I'll leave a link in the description. It would be great if you could go and check it out. Coming up on this episode, should superstar guard and now 38-year-old Stephen Curry really return to the Warriors for a late season push as they remain 10th in the Western Conference with 11 games remaining in the regular season? Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. Hope you've had a good weekend. Not a great one for the Warriors. It's a tough watch right now, it must be said. We kind of expected this given all their injury issues and being on a 6-game road trip. It was always going to be difficult, but it's fair to say it's gone about as poorly as we could have expected. Obviously, 5 games through now, finishing off in Dallas on Monday. The Warriors are 1-4 on this road trip thus far, including 3 straight losses by a combined 51 points to the Atlanta Hawks most recently, before that the Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics. And not really being in any of these games, it must be said. It feels like the Warriors can scrap and play well enough to stay in it for 18 to 24 minutes for the first quarter and a half, 2 quarters. And then as we saw in Atlanta yesterday, they go into halftime only down 2, and the Hawks come out and go bang, 25-5 run. And they were without their own star forward themselves in Jalen Johnson. So a disappointing result, it must be said. But again, you look at the guys that are out there right now and you're like, what do we expect? Really, what do we expect? This is now the 10th team in the Western Conference standings. They're multiple games below 500. I think they've now lost 16 of their past 22 or 15 of their past 21 games. And there's not really much reason for optimism aside from superstar guard Stephen Curry is nearing a return, and it feels like the Warriors aren't bluffing on this. Now, there's been some thought, and even among myself and my brain, that, hey, maybe they're just actually resting Steph over the remainder of the season, that he's not actually going to come back, that what's the point of risking a now 38-year-old who's so deep into his career for what's the payoff, right? What's the benefit of Steph coming back? And I thought, okay, maybe they're just resting him and they're kind of stringing us along a little bit by giving us these reevaluations every 10 days or whatnot. But the fact that now we haven't heard any information on how well he scrimmaged today in Atlanta, but Steve Kerr did mention prior to the game yesterday that Steph was going to go through a 5-on-5 scrimmage in Atlanta on Sunday morning. So we await the results of that. Now, he's going to miss, obviously, the game in Dallas on Monday, but then will be reevaluated back home on Tuesday, meaning technically he could return on Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets at Chase Center. I'm not going to pencil that in by any means, but the fact that he's scrimmaging would suggest to me they actually do want him to return. They actually are, unless they're going for really trying to sell it, really trying to sell the fact that he is coming back when in reality they actually don't want him to. Unless they're really trying to sell it, I think I've got to the point where I'm like, no, he actually wants to make a late season return. And we have to ask, is that actually the best thing for the Warriors? And is that the best thing for Steph Curry? I think it is, personally, just from a selfish reason of this Warrior team sucks right now, and Steph Curry is the greatest player in franchise history and one of the most entertaining athletes in the history of sport. And therefore, that's almost enough to me to be like, yeah, I want Steph Curry back playing. I don't care if the results and the magnitude of the games mean sweet bugger all. Just being able to watch Steph Curry play is a privilege. And I feel like that's a privilege that we have started to feel more in the last 20 games when he's been off the floor. And instead of watching Steph, we have to watch Brandon Podziemski and DeAnthony Melton dominate the offense, and Kristaps Porzingis be in for one game and out for one game, and all this different stuff that isn't great, it must be said, and has ultimately led to multiple double-digit losses here since Steph went out. So from that aspect, more than anything, I would like to see Steph back on the floor. But if you need more reasoning than that, then I'm willing to give it to you. Now, starters, I can understand the argument that Steph shouldn't come back. I completely get it. First of all, if he comes back and suffers any kind of significant injury over the final 10 games or however many games he plays, that's an absolute unmitigated disaster. And therefore, automatically, it would have been the wrong decision for him to come back and play in these games, right? However, I feel like a freak injury can happen at any time, right? Regardless of whether you're actually on an NBA floor or whether like you're scrimmaging in Atlanta on a Sunday morning. Like if you're out doing physical exercise, moving, like a freak injury can happen at any time. So if the medical staff believe that, hey, Steph is good to go from this runner's knee, that this is not going to impact any other potential injury or potential potential injury essentially where, maybe he's putting extra weight on his other leg because, like when Clay tore his Achilles, it's like, well, that can often happen because you're coming off the torn ACL on the other leg and like you're putting more weight through the other leg and stuff like this. Stuff that I am not smart enough for, but the medical staff, obviously that's their profession. They know what's going on. So if they tick Steph Curry off, right, if Rick Celebrini ticks Steph off and says, there is no medical, physical reason why this guy cannot play basketball, okay, then really like you're just keeping him out for the argument essentially of, well, we don't want to have any risk whatsoever. And I think the other thing is we are trying to prioritize draft lottery positioning, which if you are for that at this point with 11 games to go in the regular season, Golden State 10th in the Western Conference standings, if you are all for that, I can't really argue against you too much. Like I understand that argument. Again, my strongest argument to that is I want to watch Steph Curry play basketball. It's a privilege. Okay. I want to see fun, entertaining Warrior basketball. And even if they lose some games with Steph, just getting to watch him play for 20 minutes a night, right, is clearly more entertaining than what we're seeing right now. So that's my strongest argument to that. The draft lottery situation, the Warriors have fallen to the 10th seed. They're two games behind the Portland Trail Blazers and LA Clippers. So technically, there's a world where if those two teams suck over the last 10 games, the Warriors could still kind of finish 8th and get the double chance and probably play Phoenix in a playing game. And you know what? If like Steph and Draymond and KP and Horford and Melton and Gee and Pods and Moody are all healthy for that first playing game, who knows? Maybe they still finish as the 7th seed, right? As I'm recording this, the Nuggets and Trailblazers are actually playing, and the Nuggets are up 80-71 early in the third quarter of that game. So the Warriors could get closer, I suppose, to the 9th seed there if Portland were to go down. But the argument I would make to those who want to prioritize draft lottery position, and obviously March Madness is going on, so we're getting an even better look at some of these prospects right now. Obviously, the Warriors, if they finish as the 10th seed in the West, they finish with the 11th worst record in the league. They have essentially a 1 in 10 chance of a top 4 pick. But guess what? If they just finish with the 11th pick, right, like that still could get you a really, really good player. I know a former Warrior 11th overall pick who was turned into a 5-time All-Star and 4-time NBA champion, goes by the name of Klay Thompson, who the Warriors will see tomorrow in Dallas. But I would put the argument to you that unless like the Clippers and Blazers fall off a cliff, Steph Curry, this will sound really weird, particularly as much like after I've just spoken so highly of Steph and the privilege that it is to watch him play. I would argue that assuming he returns on a minutes restriction, which you would say will happen, he'll be on, 20 minutes, maybe something like that. I'm not convinced Steph Curry, this will sound blasphemous, but hear me out. I'm not convinced 20 minutes of Steph Curry is really impacting the results of some of these games over the last 10 games. Now, let me tell you why. Because the gulf in who the Warriors are playing is huge. Like, it's a huge contrast over the past 10 games. So if we move forward, let's see what happens in Dallas tomorrow. Warriors could win that one. Maybe Dallas could win that one. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But if we move on to the last 10 games, which Steph could theoretically play most of them, maybe, look at who they're playing. They're either playing really, really good teams or really, really bad teams. So I would argue that even without Steph Curry, if Steph doesn't play at all for the rest of the season, they're probably going to beat Brooklyn at home. They're probably going to beat Washington, and they're probably going to beat Sacramento twice. All four teams are trying to lose more than the Warriors right now. Okay? So I would, again, argue, putting it down there, that without Steph Curry, they're probably still winning those 4 games. Therefore, the Warriors are probably winning at least 4 of their last 10 games. Then if you look at their other opponents, I would argue that even with Steph Curry, and particularly on a minutes restriction of some kind, they are going to at least go in as underdogs against the Nuggets, the Spurs, the Cavs, the Rockets, and the Lakers. Right? You've got the Lakers, one of the hottest teams in the league. The Rockets are a bit iffy at the moment, but still a bona fide top 6 team in the West. The Cavs, pretty good team in the East, it must be said. The Spurs have been great all season. And the Nuggets, the Warriors have always, I know the Warriors have beaten the Nuggets, twice this season, but they've always kind of historically had an issue with Jokic and company. So that's 9 of the games in total there, where I would say, is Steph Curry, as blasphemous as this would say, is Steph Curry really making that much of a difference to the result of this game? Obviously, against those 5 teams, he could spring a 30 points in 20 minutes and actually help them to a win. Like, I acknowledge that. I understand that his sheer presence is going to make the Warriors better, so they should be more competitive in those games. I just question whether they're going to win those games anyway, even with Steph. And then the other game, the last game of the season, is against the Clippers. They're a team that is probably closer to the Warriors in talent. And therefore, yes, Steph being back could make a pretty significant difference to the result of that game, I suppose. And maybe he's off a minutes restriction by then because that's the last game of the season. And maybe it actually means something. Maybe at that point, it's like they're playing for the 8th or the 9th seed in the West, and they actually need to win that game. So, I don't know. We'll wait and see. But those 10 games, they're essentially either playing really, really bad teams that they're probably going to beat even without Steph, or they're playing really, really good teams that they're going to struggle to beat even if Steph's playing, right? Particularly when they're facing so many other, like, Steph's coming back, sure, great, but that doesn't completely evaporate the rest of their injury problems. There's still no Jimmy Butler, obviously. Al Horford, Seth Curry are out. Porzingis, let's get into tomorrow's game. So, still no Steph, still no Seth, still no Horford, still no Butler, obviously. Porzingis is probable. I'll tell you what, when he went off the floor on Friday in Detroit, just holding his lower back, I was just like, oh, God. The full Kristaps Porzingis experience has been well and truly delivered in the first 7 weeks or so since he arrived at the Warriors in that trade with the Hawks. He's played in 7 of a possible 20 games. That's not good. 7 of a possible 20 games. Although Jonathan Kuminga's game yesterday against the Warriors, which, mind you, was from an individual standpoint terrible. Just an absolutely terrible Jonathan Kuminga game, even though his team won by 16. That was only his 8th game with the Hawks in the same period. And Buddy Hield saw court time at the end in garbage time. That was only the 2nd appearance he'd made with Atlanta. So that trade right now, anyway, we could talk about it for hours, but I won't. So we've got the whole Porzingis experience. He dropped 30 earlier in the week in Washington. He's had a couple of 20-point games. Again, when he's on the floor, he's looked good. But when he went off the floor in Detroit holding the back, I was like, oh, are we going to see him again this season? Well, it sounds like we might even see him as early as tomorrow. It seems like that was a pretty minor issue for Kristaps. So hopefully he's back on the floor again. It sounds like he will be, given he's probable. Melton is also probable. D'Anthony played his first back-to-back of the entire season, obviously, since coming off his torn ACL in early December, playing in Detroit and in Atlanta. Was fairly solid, I suppose, from an individual standpoint in both of those games. Had a team-high 20 points yesterday. That is not, I mean, it's come too late for the Warriors. Like, now they're 10th in the Western Conference. His ability to play back-to-backs would have been nice for that to be the case 2 months ago, but it is what it is, obviously. And I suppose from his standpoint, it's a big thing to tick off simply because now you can go into free agency and teams aren't worried. It's like, well, do we have to rest this guy on one night of a back-to-back for the entire season? It's like, no, like he's fully back now, available. Like he should, obviously, across the course of a season, you are likely to pick up an injury, particularly D'Anthony Melton has an extensive injury history. But if you're the Warriors looking to re-sign him, or if you're any other team trying to poach him, clearly you could go into it saying, we expect this guy to play 70 plus games for us, right? Rather than, oh, no, we have to rest and manage him throughout the season. So that's a pretty big milestone, I think, for him to tick off. So congratulations to him, it must be said. Moses Moody is questionable to face the Mavericks on Monday. That's kind of important. It feels like, as much as I talk about, we've felt the value of Steph even more in the last 20 games, watching the Warriors play without him. Feels like we've also, like, Moses' value has gone up as well based on the last 10 games that he's missed. This is a guy who shoots 40% from three, who's become a consistent knockdown shooter for Golden State this season, a key starter for the Warriors. And in the last 10 games without him, the Warriors ranked 29th. I think Philadelphia are only worse when it comes to three-point percentage. Like, this team just doesn't shoot threes well, even though they, as I recorded on last episode, they rely heavily on the three ball. They just don't make them. So having Moses Moody back is going to be important, but obviously still only questionable. Quentin Post is out. It's QP. Really disappointing time for him, because with the Horford injury, there's a real opportunity for him to stand up and play some really strong basketball, get some good production in, and make a statement and a case for the Warriors bringing him back in restricted free agency. And it feels like this has just summed up his season, where, like, he just hasn't, like, there's been glimpses, but, like, he just hasn't quite taken his opportunity. It's like the first game Horford was out was in New York, and he dropped a career high 22 points on, like, 9 of 16 shooting. It was like, great Quentin Post game, fantastic. And then it's like he's missed 3 of the last 5 games, and he starts against Atlanta yesterday. And you know what? Has a pretty good first half, 8 points, 3 rebounds, hit a couple of threes, don't look nice. Oh, and then he's out for the second half. Oh, now he's out for this game in Dallas with the foot injury. That's an ongoing concern. So it just kind of sums up his season, where it was like, start of the year, it's like, oh, he's showing glimpses and flashes as like a much improved rim protector and interior defender. Oh, but he can't hit threes. Now he's got 22 straight starts, right, to try and solidify himself not only in the rotation, but as a starter for this team. Oh, it didn't quite work. Now Porzingis is here. Oh, now he's getting some DNPs. Horford gets injured. Now he has an opportunity. Oh, no, he doesn't. He's got his own injury. It's just a frustrating second season, I would say, for Quentin Post, which is continuing. And I was just looking at the rotation yesterday in Atlanta, and this is the I suppose the brutal nature of it is, like, you are in your 12th last game of the regular season. This was a season where you hoped you'd be a top 6 seed and potentially a threat to make a deep playoff run. And instead, in the 12th last game of the season, you've got a rotation that I'm not sure, like, you can't guarantee anyone is going to be on the roster, right, from who play next season, from who played in yesterday's game. The closest I would say is Gee, right? I would have him as like 95% sure he's going to be on the team next season, right? I'm leaving that 5% because it's like, well, he's got a $5 million deal now. So if that kind of contract has to be in a trade for some reason, then maybe like that could happen. But 95% sure he's still on the team. Will Richard, just again, based on his contract being on a rookie deal, making like $2 million a year, he's 90% likely to be on the roster next season. Everyone else is like up in the air. I don't know. And that's not what you want necessarily, like 12 games to go in the regular season. And particularly, like, if you are out of playoff contention, it's like, well, we're trying to build for next season. And the Warriors don't really have that either, because it's like, well, how many of these guys are actually going to be on the team next season? I like LJ Cryer, right? He's undersized, but that man can shoot it, and having a guy that can shoot off the dribble and not being named Steph Curry is actually really nice to see. I'd have him back on a 2-way, so I'm saying there's like 75% chance that happens. Post, restricted free agent, going to be dependent on what happens with Horford and Porzingis. 60% chance he's back, maybe. Pods, 60% chance, I think. I genuinely think if there's no extension in place with him and like the two sides are far apart, then maybe like there's a chance he's actually involved in a trade. And of course, if there's like if they want to renew a Giannis conversation or whatever, Pods is probably going to be in that as a Milwaukee native. Draymond probably going to pick up the player option, but that means he could be traded. So 50-50 if Draymond's on the team next season. Melton probably priced himself out of where the Warriors want to get to. So I'm saying he's less than 50% chance. And then like Pat Spencer, Nate Williams. Like Nate Williams was good yesterday. The problem with him is he's like in his fourth year of NBA experience. And so he can't be on a two-way next season. Is he good enough? Like I actually like him, but is he good enough to occupy a main roster spot? I don't know. And then Malavai Leones looks like a baby giraffe at times out on the floor. Not convinced he'll be back with the team. And then Omer Yurtseven is probably going to be off the team in a couple of days. So it's tough to see because it's not as if like aside from Gee, it's like not as if we're looking at any of these guys and thinking, oh yeah, this is great development for next season. Because I don't even know if these guys are going to be on the team next season. So anyway, we'll wait and see what happens here over the last 11 games, see what happens in Dallas tomorrow. And then Steph Curry could be back, I suppose, on Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets. You're probably going to beat them anyway. So why not just keep him out of that one as well and just let him rest up as much as he wants? I don't know. But at the same time, as I said at the very start, Warrior basketball is so much more fun and entertaining when Steph Curry is playing. And so from that reason alone, I would like the two-time MVP to come back. I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Golden State with Mates is on the Patreon, Instagram, and TikTok as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.